Hey friends, today I want to talk to you about making a really awesome Patreon video to promote your Patreon page. This would also work for Kickstarter or for your website or for a small business or for social media, anything really, but specifically today I'm talking about Patreon videos. So Patreon videos, a few weeks ago I was up in Nottingham visiting a friend called Emily Hare, who is an artist and illustrator, amazing artist and illustrator. I'll put a link to her Patreon page somewhere up here so that you can check out her work. And basically we decided we would put together a Patreon video for her to use to promote her Patreon page. Now, if you don't know what Patreon is, it is a website where creatives, artists, anyone really can create their own Patreon page, and people can offer to make a small monthly donation to the artist in return for either behind the scenes or seeing more of their work or lots of goodies like that, and they can become a patron of the arts. And it's taken off in the last few years. It's an amazing platform for growing creators, and Emily has been working on hers for a couple of years and has got lots of support. And something she's wanted to do for ages is to make a nice introductory video to welcome people to her page and obviously encourage them to support her artwork. So Patreon uses video much in the same way as Kickstarter, that when you visit the page, that video has got prime real estate on the page, and it's a great way for people to find out more about the project, find out if they want to back it, and really grab the attention of visitors in that way. So it's exactly the same on Patreon. If you've got a good Patreon page with a really nice video, then it's going to help you. But anyway, if you're watching this video, you probably know what Patreon is and you're more interested in making a really awesome video for yourselves. So so we shot a video in an afternoon. We set up in her beautiful home studio where she does all of her art, and we did an interview. I also got some B-roll of her painting and drawing and of her really nice collections of brushes and paints and stuff like that, so we got some nice shots. And then I've edited it together over the last few weeks and put in some of her work and stuff like that. Throughout that process, several things cropped up, and that has led me to kind of put together some tips which I feel will help you if you're looking to make a Patreon video or even a Kickstarter video. I think these tips would be just as helpful. Before I get into those tips though, I just want to talk about equipment, because this is a question that comes up really frequently. To shoot Emily's video, I was using a Canon 700D, which is the camera I'm filming on right now. That is a very entry to mid-level Canon DSLR. It shoots 1080p, as do so many other cameras. I was using a Rode VideoMic Pro plugged into a Zoom H1 handy recorder. That is what I am using right now. It's what you're listening to. And I used one LED video light with some foam board just to diffuse the light a little bit and soften it. That was the only equipment. Oh, and a tripod. I used a tripod as well. So that's the only equipment that I used for the video. And yeah, that is okay. That's a fair few pounds worth of equipment there. But I want to make it really clear that I don't believe that the equipment is the most important thing in making a high quality video for these platforms. I really think the most important thing is the actual content, the way that you come across in the video, the way that you show your work, and the story that you tell. So with that in mind, the first tip for making an awesome Patreon video is to focus on the story. So as I said previously, we were doing sort of an interview style format with Emily, but before we even sat down and started asking those questions, we just sort of outlined what it was that we wanted to cover in the video. And we decided, you know, we were going to talk a bit about Emily's background, how she came into art, how she got started as a professional artist, and then what her motivation was for getting into Patreon in the first place. And then we wanted to talk about benefits and stuff like that. So obviously your story that you want to tell in your Patreon video could be completely different to that, but whatever that story is, make sure that you just spend a bit of time planning out in the early stages so that you know what you're trying to kind of cover, what you're trying to film. So my next tip seems really obvious to me now, but you'd be surprised how many Patreon videos I have seen which haven't actually ticked this box, and that is to make sure that you show your work, to show what you do very clearly within the video. People are coming to your page to check you out and could possibly want to support you with a financial contribution. So they need to get a very clear idea of what it is you do. If you're a painter, show your paintings. If you're a dancer, show yourself dancing. Whatever, you know, whatever it is that you're doing on Patreon, make sure that you're really clearly demonstrating and showing your work within the video. Next up, something else I noticed lots of videos not doing is, for video we call it an establishing shot, but really what that translates to is just showing the wider scene, showing the room that the person works in, or showing where they work, a little bit of kind of background stuff. I said previously I did some B-roll of like nice paintbrushes in pots and bits and pieces. So anything like that just really goes a long way to help show users the environment that this person works in, and by showing the environment you're also showing part of their personality and part of your personality if this video is for you. So I think it's really important that don't just show, like me now, I'm sat at a table, you don't know what's the other side of the camera, but if this was a Patreon video, why not do that slightly wider shot that shows the room that I'm in, the surroundings that I'm in. You know, I'm talking about video, maybe show my messy editing desk or whatever. All of these things help people to stitch together an idea of your character, your personality, and all of those things are what's going to make someone want to support your Patreon page. Next up, and this is a big one, and this isn't just for Patreon, this is for any video online at all, is you must make sure that you are natural in your presentation to camera. If you're not familiar with talking to camera directly like I am now, then don't do it. Set yourself up in an interview environment, just as I did with Emily's video, where actually Emily doesn't look at the camera at all throughout the video. Maybe a couple of really short snippets that we set up specifically for her to introduce herself, but the rest of it is done as an interview. She's talking to me, her eyes are on me, just next to the camera, and that just makes it much more natural. Emily was not a natural presenter in front of the camera. Very few people are, so to remove that kind of awkwardness that you can get, there's no problem with talking to someone, a real human, just next to the camera, and I found that to be a much more natural way of doing things with Emily. I think Emily found that put her at ease no end, so that was a really good way of doing it. Now don't get me wrong, if you are completely natural with talking to a camera, then there is an appeal to doing that. You can address your audience directly and get that eye contact, and that's really nice, but don't feel that you have to. A heartfelt, natural kind of performance, if you will, without that kind of eye contact can be just as engaging and just as charismatic as talking directly to the camera. So next up, I want to talk about showing who you are. I think a lot of online videos, you know, this kind of ties in with the previous point. People look at the camera, they're not used to it, they say what they've planned to say, and they are really awkward, and it's not a natural thing, and you don't find out who they are or what they're like, and it's just awful. You see so many videos like that. So what I would say is, think of a way, think about your character traits, think about what makes you, you. Maybe you've got a great sense of humor, maybe you're really weird and wacky and out there. Whatever it is, try and incorporate something into the video that is going to show your personality, your character, and your charisma. Because at the end of the day, when someone is backing your Patreon page, they are buying not just whatever your artistic skill might be, but they're also supporting you as a person. They're buying into you. So you've got to be likable, and you've got to come across as someone that they want to support. And Emily is a fantastic human being, great sense of humour, and previously I think she'd fallen foul of this a little bit as well. I hope she doesn't mind me saying that, but you turn a camera on and it's game face. It's like, okay, today we're going to do some painting, I'm going to talk to you about this, I'll talk to you about that, and actually it's really difficult to get out of that. So think of some ways that you can get some character into there. And the previous point about not necessarily talking to camera, that's a good one. With Emily, actually, because we were doing it in an interview environment. We kept the camera rolling. I had loads of outtakes, we had bloopers, and in the final video I actually incorporated a few of those bloopers into it because they were hilarious. And that is, if anything, when I could see Emily at her most relaxed, messing around, doing silly things. And I just felt like, you know, as I was watching that back, I felt that was really important to show that side of her to her patrons, to potential people that want to support the channel, because that's real, you know, and it's so important that a video like this feels authentic. And I think those little points really help. So do your best to kind of try and get some of your character into the video. So this next one is really important, and surprisingly, so many videos that I see online forget to do this, and that is to make sure that you're telling viewers what's in it for them. It's that classic marketing, advertising cliche, you know, what's in it for me. That's what people will be looking at when they're watching the video. So on Patreon, obviously you have your different reward tiers. People can support you for $2 a month, right up to $50 a month, or whatever it might be for the tiers, and you get different things for each level of support. So make sure that you really clearly show people what their money's going to get them, what level of support it's going to do, and how that support is going to, you know, change your life as the Patreon, as it were, you know. So definitely really important. Make sure the benefit, why should they sign up to your Patreon? What's in it for them? That is so important, and definitely not to be missed. And then finally, this is kind of amusing, if anything, after all of that stuff that I've just told you, all of this content, cram in all of these important things, do this, do that. Really importantly, keep the video as short as you possibly can, because people's attention span online when watching video is tiny. So I think Emily's video came out at 3.5 minutes. That is on the long side. I would have loved that video to come in at sort of 2 minutes, but perhaps I was over precious with the editing myself, but I felt that, you know, 3.5 minutes, it was 3.5 minutes of good, solid content that was ticking all of the other boxes. Now obviously with your video, or a video you're making for someone else, only you can judge what is the right length, but I would suggest certainly not going over that 3.5 minute mark, because anything over that and you're going to really struggle to keep people's attention. I mean, I could be wrong. Again, there could be someone out there who's got a Patreon page that absolutely it takes 7 minutes for them to correctly, properly explain why you should sign up, show their work, all of that, and that's fine. But certainly the ones I've seen, I feel that shorter videos will help and perform better, and it's about cramming that information in and keeping it short and snappy and to the point. So they are my tips for how to make an awesome Patreon video. I hope you found them helpful. As I said at the beginning, I think all of those tips are equally applicable to any form of online video marketing content, whether it be a Kickstarter, a website introduction, anything at all like that. So I hope you found those useful. If you did, give the video a thumbs up. If you're interested in this sort of thing, my journey as I learn filmmaking, mobile filmmaking, camera, photography, all of this sort of stuff that I talk about, I upload regular content, so please subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And other than that, I'm going to leave you with Emily Hare's full Patreon video that just went live, so check it out, see what you think. I would love for you to let me know any of your questions or what you thought of today's video down in the comments, and other than that, I will see you next week. Emily Hare, take 1.
Oh. I'm Emily Hare, and I'm an illustrator, and I love fantasy and folklore, and there's quite often some quite silly things in there as well. Sometimes it's dramatic though, and yeah, sometimes creepy. I've been an artist since I left school, really. I started quite late into the illustration industry and got into digital art, and I've been doing that with doing book covers and some RPG games. Did that for the last 12 or 13 years. I missed, because I started in traditional media, I really missed that, and I kept going back to it. About 2 years ago, when I started my Patreon, I wanted it to be a place where I could go back to using traditional media, and that's where almost it was like accountability for for spending time to do that outside of my client work with the digital stuff, and I've not looked back. It's been really good. In the last 2 years, my Patreon has taken me on an amazing journey, and I've got these amazing people supporting me. When you become one of my patrons, you will get, at the very least, full access to my behind the scenes of my studio, how I make my paintings, even being able to get some input into what I'm creating and suggestions and feedback, and asking me how I do a specific thing, and you can interact with me directly within my Patreon, much more than elsewhere on the internet. If you want to go even bigger than that, the bigger patrons, they will get original artwork, they'll get prints, they get video access, and there'll be more coming soon as the Patreon keeps growing, which is very exciting. The way my Patreon has gone and the support that I've been getting from everyone has been amazing, and it's so encouraging when you're waving your artwork out there into the internet and you don't know if anyone really likes it. So to have people who you know want to support your art, but also the feedback you get, it's gold dust. It's the best feeling when you know people, they love what you're doing. It's the best feeling in the world. It's great. I don't have to worry about trying to imagine what my client wants me to make for them. It's purely my own imaginings, and I have complete freedom. It's totally changed. It's changed my life in that I am now at a point where I can just keep creating my own sort of little visions and little strange little worlds and strange creatures, and yeah, it's a very special thing, and I'm very, very thankful to my patrons. They're brilliant. Thank you so much for stopping by my page, and if you would like to become my patron, that would be amazing, and you can check out more info down below in the about part of my Patreon page and see all the tiers and what there is to offer. That would be brilliant. If you fancy it, click the button. Yeah. Thank you for joining my Patreon.